Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today is part 2 of working the Christmas panel. Firstly, thank you to everyone who purchased my panels. There's 2 in the range, this big one which I'm working on now for the month of December, and a second panel that is versions of this but smaller. So there's some gift tags on that panel as well as just a sort of a section of the big image. It's all on the website. Go and have a little look if you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about. But for those of you who've got your panels and are stitching away, or for those of you who decided not to invest in the panels and have sketched yourself out some form of Christmas floral image and is also joining in with the collaging and the stitching. So let's get started. So last week it was all about getting your background down. So if you were seed stitching or camphor stitching, getting that started. You're sort of going to be building up, and it's going to get more and more problematic with dragging threads through as you collage different elements onto the actual piece. So for example, if you've just found the channel, I'm using petals from poinsettias that you can pick up and magnolias that you can pick up around Christmas time. I've pulled them apart to get myself a selection of materials that can be used on the panel. So if you're out and about and you even see some that are heavily sequined, or see there's these burgundy tones, like, oh, there's so much out there. Just something to think about because it's a different type of fabric and it doesn't fray and it gives you a little bit of bulk. So anyway, let's wind back a little bit. I couched down the letters, but you'll see the C and the M, I did a different stitch. So I've just got a little bit of that to go, and I thought I'm going to just show you that before we get going. And then we can move on to collaging some of the mistletoe is what I want to work on today. So what I ended up doing with the M and the C is just doing a little overcast stitch. So just picking up a tiny few threads around the black line that is printed on my panel and keeping it as even as I can, but it is definitely, you know, rustic. So it took ages, but I really like the effect that it's quite raised and it looks different to the rest of the letters. So I'm going to just finish this last little bit. This is a bit of a Jessie Chorley technique too. If you're familiar with Jessie's work, she does a lot of outlining of her images using this stitch. And when you see her work, the amount she does, it's like, oh my goodness. It's not the fastest way of doing things because usually you're running your thread, you know, straight down. This is running your thread across. It's like a buttonhole stitch nearly. But we're done. We're sliding into the end here. So this is a crochet cotton, pearl number 5, DMC. The colour is 321. Yeah, pearl cotton, DMC. Only a little bit left. I was starting to fret that I wouldn't make it to the end, but we did. I just want a couple more stitches. And then we can end that off. And that is the script on the panel finished. Now, I've just got it folded because so I can fit it in the camera and be reasonably close to you guys. So let's take that away now. Letters are done. Now, as I said in the last video, seed stitch is my background. Some of you have used camphor stitching, just rows and rows of it, cross hatching, blanket weave, you can do all sorts. I'll bring it up to the camera because you probably can't see. See all the little stitches in here? Some slowly radiating out. Now, in addition, I started working in some lace because I want the lace in the background as well, which picks up these additional little flowers and this mistletoe. So the lace, let's start right at the beginning as well on the lace department. This is a little blouse that had like a little chiffon top under it, and this lace was over the top of that little blouse. So I've cut it off, and it's just given me the most softest, beautiful, it's like a cotton onto a very soft tulle. I really do love it when I find elements like this, because you can use the tulle, you can cut out all these little pieces. Now that's the image there that I've used, and I think I've nibbled out of this 3 of them. There's one from there, 2, maybe 3, yeah, 3. So the first one appears here. Then I started with another one here. So the big flower is the indicator. Yeah, there is 3. 1, 2, and there's one here. So those 3 motifs, which were that big, some nice big pieces, and then broke it down so that I got little snippets around, and then just using my needle and thread, just sewing machine, needle and thread. There's a little bit here that needs to be tacked down because I left it up in the air so I could sneak in there with the letter M. So I'm just going to do that now, and it's just in little invisible stitches to secure this soft lace that's part of my background. So it's sort of in the category of my seed stitch. It's just there. It will pop up elsewhere on the panel. I guess if you get sick of seed stitch, pop in a little bit of your lace, your background lace. Because it's delicate, it's not sort of being too obtrusive on the piece as well. Which brings me to the little white flowers that are on this piece. So let me just end that off. So that's how I did the lace. I'm going to knot that now because we're heading into beading and all sorts of activities in a moment. So once your background is nutted out, seed stitch lace, then it comes to these little flowers. Little white flowers is what I've done. There, and over here. Now there's still some up the top here. See, there's another cluster of them. And there, I think that's the last of them, that and that. Most of them, I think all of them, are in sets of 3. Yes. So I did 2 that were in stitching using pearl cotton in the beige, the soft cream. The biggest of the 3 is a feature flower. So that one and that one, well actually I probably would stitch that one and make that the feature flower. In this scenario, I would stitch that guy and make that the feature flower. So what we're getting then, see here's 2 stitched, little bit of that background lace, and this is my feature flower. See, there's the big guy underneath. So what I ended up doing was auditioning a heap of different ways to make myself a little dimensional flower. The first scenario was, I'm just going to bring my tray in here because I kept the little flower, is I got my tracing paper, which I will use to more detail in a moment when we get into the mistletoe, is I placed, I think it was this guy here too, I placed my tracing paper on my panel using a pencil, drew around the flower, making sure that my lines were slightly bigger than the lines on the panel. That way, by the time you cut it out, which you are going to be slightly bigger again, as you can see, my tracing paper lines, I'm bigger again by the snipping out of the flower. Then I went to my go-to calico and I cut myself out a little calico flower. Not sure where that's ended up now. It's missing in action. I think it's still over on the couch. That little calico flower, look, I'll just do it actually. This is me auditioning what I was going to do with the flower. And this was where I started. So let's get this little calico flower. I might use my little snippy ones. You might decide that this suits your panel, so you might go down the calico flower idea, but just didn't quite look right for what I was doing. So I ended up doing something completely different, but the technique is what I'm more interested in showing you, because this technique is, I've wriggled the template. See, there you go, there's a problem. I've wriggled the template around, probably should pin it. Usually I hold it nicely in my hand and that doesn't happen, but it did, because I'm yibber yabbering probably to you guys. Let me get my fingers out of there. Oh, stuck. Let's try that again. So I've got my little template. This template business, this tracing of the image that's printed, you will use for your magnolias and you will use for your poinsettias and of course the mistletoe. So this video, part 2, is all about getting used to using a template to build up your flowers. So what I plan to do in this one is we nut out the mistletoe and we're going to start on the poinsettia. Then the next Sunday video, because we're doing 4 videos, will be the magnolia. By then I'll really have this template business under control. See, this time I didn't wriggle it. So I've got myself a little flower, of which I can shape a little bit more if I need to, but being careful not to cut it too small that the lines on the panel show. So there's a template, there's a little fabric guy, and there he is into position. I then started fiddling around with what am I going to do in the center of that, and I went looking for some crocheted doilies that had a flower similar size, and I have that. So I cut out that little piece. Then I came back to this and I laid it on there, and I thought, well, it sort of disappeared. Did I like it? And I decided I didn't. So I ended up rejecting that. This would still work, but it just didn't work with this. You might do some embroidery into here. You could probably find some more delicate lace like this lace and ruche it into the center of your calico flower. But I decided to abandon the calico flower, so it's gone, hence why the original one's sitting over on the couch. And this little guy came out. So let's, and we need another 2, so let's do that next. So it's just a case of snipping out the little motif. Now, some people ask me in the comments all the time, doesn't it unravel? No, it doesn't. Crocheting is a series of knots, knot after knot after knot, to create all of the different stitches. So you can happily snip away, and where you've cut, I can guarantee there's a knot nearby that will stop it from unraveling. So we need 2 more. I believe there was room for 2. So let's grab those out and make that little flower. I'm sort of trying to get ahead of you a little bit, then show you how I made the bits so you see everything. We've only got 4 videos, so I can't be meandering along like I would normally. I'm sort of getting in front of you, then bringing you up to speed, and then potentially starting another section, and then I can go off and catch myself up, if that makes sense. So these 2 are going to go there and there. Okay, so let's finish them off. The next thing I went looking for is a small flower to go in the center. Now I had a look at this guy there, but I just didn't like it. That's a trim from birch that I picked up at Spotlight. I had a look at this lace, and there's this little edge to it and little flowers. They just, no. So I cut one of those out. Didn't like that. And where is the lace that I ended up using? which surprised me in the end. I even went looking through my mum's wedding lace and I thought maybe I could work that in. It's still hanging around, but no, not at this stage. This here is the one I chose. It's got a bit of elastic feel about it, and it quite surprised me at how well it worked, because I think, see how it's corded? It's got like, I'll bring it right up to the camera. It's got like a little corded feel about it. It's probably not showing up as good as I'd like, but it held its own in the center. I felt like, oh, you guys can't see that. Trust me, it works. So just have a fiddle with your little flowers. When you decide that you're focusing on a little element, have a fiddle with lots of different little centers. Once I figured that out, I then went with the sequin. Now it's time to bring the bling in, and there's going to be some bling on this piece. 2 little sequins. They're a champagne gold. So they then went in the center. And then I went to my beads. Where are my beads? And I found this. Oh my goodness, guys, look what I just did. Oh, how hilarious. Okay, what can I put them in? I've just upended beads everywhere, guys. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, they're my Flirt Woods beads. And they are so not this piece. Seriously. That's a problem with these little canisters. If you undo it the wrong way, problems. So that's the way. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to need to tidy up now. But what I will do is, while we're in a mess, I'm going to pull out my needle and thread. I'm going to leave that scattering of multicolored beads everywhere. Just love it. Because I want to just finish those little guys. And then when I come back, having cleaned up my multicolored beads, we can start on that mistletoe. So it's just a couple little stitches first to secure the lace. You can do this straight onto your panel, but because I knew you guys were watching me make them, I decided that I'd make them separately. They're little elements. I still need to seed stitch the top part of this panel, and having these 3-dimensional little guys in my way is just going to drive me a little bit batty. So I thought I'll just make them, I'll put them aside in a container and they'll be ready to go. The ones here, 1, 2 and 3, they were just pinned on. So those will be packed away as well. I just wanted to get some little elements started, because you guys will be looking at these areas thinking, well, what's some ideas? Now I had some pearl beads. These are all beads from vintage necklaces. Don't think they're real pearls. Some of them are in that container, but these ones aren't. But they're perfect. So a couple little stitches, and I've got myself a little element ready for the panel when I'm ready. Because like I said, there's a lot of seed stitch. And then that would just get stitched down. So we'll put him over to the side here. There he is. He's leaving. And let's finish that little guy. Oh my goodness me. Look at the beads everywhere. Oh well, entertaining, wasn't it? Made you giggle, I bet. Okay, so we're just getting the 2 little elements stitched together. Sequin then stitched into that. I know there'll be more lacy bits on this because I want it to be quite an elegant looking piece. Well, we say that, but I probably won't because I'll get another idea and head down another rabbit hole. But we're starting off elegant, I think. There we go. Last one. So I can now just put this little guy aside, and one day at the end they will be put into position. Got to get a lot of stitching done before then in the background. And that goes with this poinsettia that we'll start. I've got to make sure all the seed stitching is done around it because otherwise it'll just be a pain in the neck. But I wanted to get this video sort of kicking along for you because if you're not seed stitching, you'll be ready to start your flowers. Okay, so that's the last one. That should be all I need, 5 of them. I might just grab a little tray from behind me. I'm not that ready for the next stage. No, I'll just pop them in here. So there they are. And I'll leave you there for a moment. I'll leave the rest pinned. You can come off and not get lost. You can stay. All right, what I'm going to do is pause the video, tidy up this mess, and then we will talk mistletoe. So back in a moment, guys. Okay, I'm back. Beads are gone. Everything's normal again. They're sitting precariously on the edge of the table. So you watch, I'll knock them and they'll be gone again. Mistletoe. So we've finished making our little flower for there. In around him is these mistletoe leaves. So what I'll show you in this video is not only some of the choices that I looked at for my mistletoe, but the actual tracing of the mistletoe, because I auditioned a few pieces. That's the template for one of them. Can't remember which one now. I think it's that guy, which I then cut out the fabric that I ended up settling on, which is this pale Tiffany blue. I'll grab my pencil because I've got one more to do. They're just pinned at the moment. Once again, I need to seed stitch all through here before I even think about doing this mistletoe officially, but I'm going to show you. So I've got a tiny little guy here. I'm going to be miserly and use that tiny little bit of tracing paper that's just sitting on that end there. So place him on. Use a sharp pencil too. Take a moment to sharpen your pencil. So once again, I'm tracing just on the outline of the printed line so that when I cut it now, again, just on the outside edge, it's getting that fraction bigger each time. That ensures, which I've already said in the first section of the video, that when this goes onto the panel, the printed line is hidden. So that's it, itty bitty template. But it is so much bigger just than the one on the panel. Let me just zoom in like that. There he is there. So then when it came to colours, the first colour I went to was this silver. That's the first one. And I just didn't like the tone. It sort of looked dirty. So that got rejected. I even tried cutting one out with a little bit of glitter on the edge of it, but it's just the wrong colour. So that one was out. I kept them all just to show you my thought process. There's a template. I don't need him now because it's to that particular shape. Now this guy was a foil petal. Tried that one. Just didn't didn't work. I suspect that this might work really well with the magnolia, but who knows, the jury's out on that. So that one got rejected. And then I went back to the Tiffany blue tone, which is one I used on a panel earlier when I did the originals. I need to put the lid on these. I'm looking at another lot of beads at the side of me here, ready to take a stack. These containers, great for travel, but boy, they're problematic when they everywhere. Anyway, sidetracked. So this is my little piece, my little template now is going to be cut out. Don't flip the template as you saw it, as you drew it, as you cut it. Always keep that side facing you, because otherwise you'll get a petal that is in reverse to what's actually printed in front of you, if that makes sense. You'll know when it happens because it'll be like, why aren't you fitting? Sometimes you can trim the piece and pull it off and still use it. Other times it's just completely wrong. So I've got my little guy. This little fellow won't appear anywhere else, so I'm going to pop him in the bin. And there's my new petal. So I can just pin him on for now. Now, the berries, mistletoe have these little white berries that the birds pick up and spread everywhere, and then that's how the mistletoe spreads across the place, because it's like a parasite plant. In Australia we have a native mistletoe, and it's everywhere in our gum trees. You'll know it when you see it. You look up and there's this weird shape in the tree line, and that's the mistletoe. So what I'm going to do is, I'm pretty confident I can seed stitch in around this area, but I definitely want those pins gone. So I'm just going to do some little itty bitty see the pins, they just drive us nuts, don't they? I'm going to do some little itty bitty invisible stitches so the mistletoe, my petals stay. Now I know I just told you don't do this until your background's done. Do what I say, not what I do. So I'm just going to tack it down for now, get through the pins. And then when I finish the camera, I'll seed stitch right through this zone. Then I'll finish all of that mistletoe. That'll be my homework. Now, what I want to show you on this mistletoe is some decorative stitching. So let's get to the point where I can at least show you that. The actual berries, what I'm thinking of doing is that. Some sequins with some gold beads. Now you can stitch them in satin stitch so that they're all stitched. What else could you do? You could cut out a template in white felt and then some French knots or beads. You can do all sorts with those little berries, but I decided I'm going to use the opportunity to get the bling in. Now the cluster of bling that'll be going there won't be exactly that, because I'm getting sidetracked. My sequin is smaller than most of those berries. So that berry there, I'm not covering it. So in that scenario, I will put in there maybe, I just dropped all the sequins. I will put in a cluster of sequins to hide my berry that's printed, and then backfill it with beads. So those petals will have like little clusters of sequins and beads on them. It won't be as singular. Does that make sense? Look, we're going to actually stitch it in a section. I'm going to just finish what I was doing. I've jumped ahead. I've got so many buzzing ideas in the brain. So let's just get Imagine this section through here all beaded and all sequined. I think it'll be quite striking. So that's sort of what brought the idea into my mind. But first of all, let's get this little guy stitched down as well. Oh, there's no knot. I just can't go fast enough. I need to just relax. It's like I got 20 things in my mind, and I was like sitting on the couch in the morning sun thinking, I'm just going to go and film, because then I can carry on with 20 little things to do, and video 2 is up and ready for you guys. And then when I get back to you, we'll be quite advanced, I believe, and the magnolia will be our focus, because the mistletoe, the holly, well, the holly will leave till we do the magnolia. I've got enough here. Mistletoe and poinsettias. So that's a couple little stitches just to hold it, purely to get rid of my pin, because I want to do onto those little blue petals some seed stitch, not seed stitch, fly stitch or feather stitch, something like that. So let's grab this little guy, get rid of that, move it so it's definitely covering the printed line. And I class these little petals as background when looking at this particular structure of plant, because when I drew it, I drew the stem, background, then I did the leaves, the next thing, and then I did the berries on top. So that's how I would stitch it. That way these little leaves tuck in behind the berries. So there we go, just a couple little stitches. You could leave it at that if you feel like your little leaves have enough. Goodness me, need a sneaky knot. If you feel like your little mistletoe leaves have enough interest, but I think I can do more with it. Let's just knot that off. All right, we've got one more up here. We'll start up the top of that petal, remove the pin, make sure that it is covering, there's a blue bead in my peripheral vision here. Look, I'm going to be chasing them for weeks. I don't think any went to the floor, but who would know? So this little guy is now secure. That gets rid of the pins. Now I'm going to thread up the cotton to do a decorative stitch on that little leaf. So this decorative stitch business onto petals, leaves, buds, this is sort of what gives your piece that real interest. So once you collage your fabrics or your velvets or your lace or whatever it is that you're adding, then have a look at it and go, well, what can I stitch in there to add even more detail? And you'll be surprised just how interesting it makes your piece. Now, so what I'm thinking is that's my background colour. That's my large flower colour. Oh, Fudgy's having a bit of a cough. I'd like something to go in. I'm thinking that guy. Yeah, it won't go bright. I'll keep it muted. See, that just looked too bright, so we'll go that one. So we'll thread this one up. Fudgy was snoring and now he's having a little, he's just woken himself up and he's having a little cough. You all right, Fudgy? follow. Should I go and pat him on the back? You know, when kids are having a little cough. He was sound asleep. Okay. I might just go check on him, guys. Be back in a moment. Oh no, he stopped. Nope, I'm just going to check on him. Okay, I'm back. He's good. He coughed another couple times and then crawled out of bed, had a drink of water, had something to eat, and he's gone back to bed. So he's okay. Now where was I? I have threaded up and I'd like to do a little decorative stitch on this. Let's see what comes of it. Let's get ourselves into camera shot. Maybe a feather. Fern stitch maybe. I don't know. Let's... Doesn't need much, but I just think it's going to give it just that little bit of detail. Can you see that? Tiny. Yeah. We'll go over here, point the needle to where we're heading. I can hear Jennifer Clouston in my head. There we go. Yeah, that's good. Don't start again. Now he's beside me. Oh, you're going to have another one. Oh my goodness, guys. I better stop because I think he needs some help. Okay, I'm back. Oh my goodness. I thought he'd gone to bed and was laying down, but no, he'd snuck out and was under the table, and the next minute's beside me. Oh my goodness, he's okay. He only coughed a couple times and he's settled down again. So I finished that there. You can see the little stitch, and now I'm just doing this little guy. Tiny, tiny stitching. Look, to be honest, when you glance at this panel, you're not going to notice this little bit of detail, but it is fun. So that guy is done, just a couple little stitches. Oop. Gosh, now my phone's ringing. Oh my goodness, guys, talk about interruptions today. I've done a bodgy knot. I better go and grab that phone. It could be something important. All right, guys, back in a moment. Okay, I'm back. So about 3 hours has gone by. Phone calls, pattern fudge, more phone calls, and I finally got back to the chair. So where were we? I ended up, while I was chatting to one phone call, finishing the stitching on the little leaves. This is a bigger version of those little mistletoe, and I thought I'll show you that because you can then really clearly see it's the same little stitch. I used a white piece of the fabric with a little X in it for the berries that time. The other thing I'm wanting to decide is I'm going to do the same chocolate for the stems. You can see the stems there. The little flowers in this scenario had a bit of weaving stitch in it in the red. There's some French knots and some X's all in those reds. So that's the treatment of the mistletoe on that piece. So I thought I might as well show you that. So let's come back to this panel. So I've stitched those. Now technically I should be seed stitching underneath all that, but I haven't. So what I'm going to show you next, because I want to show you the clusters that I'm thinking for the beads, for the berries. So the sequins will not cover each berry because the berries are bigger than a sequin. So what my plan is to stitch down the sequins randomly with a little bead in the center of them to hold them down. And that cluster of sparkle will start the process of creating the little berries. So I just need a little bead in the center, and I'm using a gold and a champagne together just to get that little sparkle. Now you can see how I'm doing 2 stitches in each one. I've snuck into here because at least the seed stitch is done. If I go over here, I'm going to just get all tangled up on these little elements as I try and catch back up the background, sort of putting the cart before the horse here a bit. So sequin and bead, and then just cluster around that area, the beads holding the sequin on, and I'm doing 2 little stitches in each one. It's my grandmother in my ear, wedding dressmaker. You want the bride to be able to dance and not lose any beads from the bodice of her dress. So 2 little stitches, and I come up again over here, pick up another one. Now I might zoom the camera in because you probably can't really see. Just grabbing another little sequin, they're fiddly. I've lost track of how long this video has been because I've stopped and started so much. But once we get this mistletoe sorted, we'll go to the poinsettia, and it's just repeat exactly what we've just done with these little mistletoe leaves. And then the center of the poinsettia, of course, can be as blingy as you want, or knots, or turkey work, just whatever you want. I'll just do a couple more of these. So this is how I'm going to get a bit of sparkle on my panel, is start adding sequins and beads, pearls as we go. It is Christmas after all, got to have a little bit of bling. I'll show you something I want to do to the poinsettias too. A little while back I got some leftover lacy motifs from the wedding industry. I'll link the video below where I show you. I can't remember the company name now off the top of my head, but there'll be a video below. They're in Australia, and they sell elements left from making wedding dresses. So we're talking some serious bling. And I went to that cupboard looking for something floral for those little white flowers. And I found a piece that was like, oh my gosh, imagine that in the center of a poinsettia. Which then said, all right, well, you need to get a little bit more bling happening, because otherwise then the poinsettias will look a little bit out of place if they're going to be as full on as I'm about to show you. So I guess it gave me the confidence to, it's not going to thread, gave me the confidence to really go for it with these little guys. I think they'll look pretty, it's not going to thread. I should have a smaller beading needle. There'll be one somewhere. See, even those dots here, those there, that potentially could be beads. Even more bling. Okay. Oh, I picked up 2 then. Oh, my goodness. I just noticed that the TV is switched off. I was mirroring my iPad to the TV, so then I can glance at it at ease to see if you guys are, well, I see what you guys are seeing. And now it stopped mirroring. Mirroring. Oh, my goodness. I think there's probably 2 more sequins needed. Then I might tidy up my desk because it's a hang of a mess here. grab all of the red poinsettia elements. Otherwise, I will end up knocking over sequins next. Now we're going to need one more. There we go. Yeah, that's good. I'd say the chocolate branches, I may need to drop down to a stranded cotton because I've got out, where is it? I've got out quite a thick thread and that might be too much. So I might need to get a finer, you know, a 6-stranded cotton, break it down to 3 strands if it looks a little bit too much. Okay, here we go. So I've got a cluster of beads and sequins to represent the mistletoe berries. And I think under there was, what, 3 that I'd sketched. So it's entirely up to you. This is a prime example of, if you've got a better idea, do it. I will not be offended if the design changes somewhat. I think it sort of does anyway. When you start collaging elements onto things, spaces change. All right, so that's my bead sequin scenario. That's in the center of those little guys there. I think that is it. Let me now tidy up, move a heap of this out of the way, and I'll bring in the red velvet so that we can start working on this guy. All right, guys, back in a moment. Okay, I'm back. All of the mistletoe elements are packed away. I still have him sitting there pinned, so I hope he doesn't jab me. Let's talk about the poinsettias. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll start with this guy here because he's easy to capture on camera. So the same principle as before with the mistletoe little leaves. It's trace the petal and then add it to the panel. And when I look at that mistletoe, I want all of the petals that are at the back. So this guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. And you can see how that one sits over that one. So you need to sort of have a think about who sits over who. We might start there, and we're going to assume that petal is sitting right in behind there. So when I trace him, I'm going to continue my line back deep into the actual flower. So there's my first petal. So let's cut him out. I traced it slightly bigger. Now I'm going to cut it slightly bigger because I want to hide all of my little printed lines. The same principle as before. So I'm probably repeating myself. I know a lot of you have carried on your own steam and you're already onto your flowers, which is great. So here we go. There is my petal, and yes, it is bigger, which is fantastic. This is the fabric that I've chosen, and this is one of those red poinsettias, nice lolly red, fire engine red. So it's just a case now of popping my little template on, cutting it out, once again, slightly bigger, not by much, but certainly want to hide my sketch. And there we go, one flower. So we're going to pop a pin in, a nice sharp pin. All right, so the next flower, that petal is really not much chop because they're all completely different. I've hand drawn them, so there's no rhyme or reason, I guess, to the size. So you need to do each one. Now that petal there is going over the top of that one. So let's just remove him for a moment. Don't go ahead. Look, actually, look, you can. Don't go ahead, I wouldn't, and pre-trace them all because you will get in a pickle. Some people number them. They'll go through and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and then lay them on. That's fine if that works for you. Doesn't work for me. I get all confuddled. I do one petal at a time. Take your time, sketch each one. That way too, if you need to adjust anything, you can. That'd be my recommendation. But if you want to cut them all out beforehand, go for it. There's no Poinsettia petal police here. So now check it. That's good. And cut it out. So you, at this stage, might decide to mix up your fabrics. I'm really interested to see if I could bring in a bit of this net. So whether that comes into the centre, I'm not 100% sure yet. I could probably use a slightly darker petal, but we'll see. There we go. Bit of fluff. So this little guy was there. That little guy is there. There we go. So I'd work around the whole perimeter, cutting and drawing and cutting as I go. So this, I'm going to do this guy next. So where I can't see it, just pretend you can and make your petal whole. Now the petals themselves, you've got a couple options. You can do stitching onto them. I'll just bring that into shot. A little running stitch. You could just do invisible stitch. You could do a feather stitch or a fly stitch like we did with the mistletoe. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. I think I'll just get them all onto the piece and then have a think about the embellishment. Maybe I bring the beads out and put rows of beads up some of the petals. Don't know. Decision for another day. I just wanted to get started on it so you guys can see this layering. So that little guy would go there, that little guy would go there, and that little guy goes over you as well. So I'm going to pin them. So you there, you there, and you there. There we go. So the next one we might do is that guy, and I think I can use that piece of template to get our next shape. Now the centres. This is where I really want to go blingy, and I'll show you what I've got in mind. Now, you may not be able to find something like what I'm thinking, but you could easily create it with just clusters of beads. You'll know what I mean when I grab it for you. So once again, a little bit bigger than what I actually need. We want these little flowers to be lush. Not quite. Will he fit? Can we get him there? There, oh yeah. Yep. And there. All right. he under or over? He is over. You are pinned there. So you can see how your poinsettias build quite quickly. I've got a bit of a hacky corner there. What do I do there? So that little guy goes into there. There we go. So I'd continue working my flower and then decide what I do stitching wise on it. I'm sort of tending towards something like the mistletoe. There is also nothing stopping you adding additional layers of petals. Let's just have an experiment. That net is calling out to me. Let's just create a brand new petal that doesn't exist on the panel. Let's pop it onto this glittery mess. Oh my goodness. What if we add some of these in too? We're going off design a little, but I'll give you some suggestions. See, this could be lace, it could be tulle, it could be organza. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. So if that, then that's what I'm going to do, guys. I won't be stitching in. I'll be invisible stitching these down and then popping little bits of this glitter leaf in amongst it. Layering it up. Let me zoom in. I won't pick the piece up because everything is just like teetering there. There we go. Now the bling. This is what I found in the cupboard from that wedding dress. Scrappy bits. And have a look at that. When am I ever going to use that if it's not on a Christmas piece? So what I'm thinking, let's trim it out. I'd probably need to do, I'll leave that pearl in there because I might need to just unpick the pearl separately. See, the pearls are falling off. There we go. So these threads hold everything in place. So what I'd do is go around and just reinforce anything that I thought was a little loose. But look at that bling. And imagine that in the centre of my poinsettia. Oh, love it. Love it, love it. So that's what I'm thinking. Now I need to keep that somewhere safe because it needs reinforcing. But yeah, have a think about combinations of beads. Like, there's no reason why we can't create all this with your beading. You could do a poinsettia leaf in amongst it that is the sequins laid down like that. Look at that. All in rows. If that was red, you could create a little element that then would go into the centre of your poinsettia. That'd be beautiful. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to cover in today's video. So I'm going to keep seed stitching. I'm going to keep working on my poinsettias. And next week, see, there's more mistletoe. Next week it'll be magnolias and holly. And then the final video, just before Christmas, will be the border. Let me just zoom back out. You guys can't see what I'm pointing to. So there's some magnolia, some mistletoe here. So yeah, it'll be holly and magnolias next week. All right, guys, that gives me plenty to go on with. I've got a mess everywhere here, glitter everywhere. Oh my goodness, if you don't like glitter, you do not want to go down this path. You will not cope with the glittery bits. All right, guys, thanks for joining me, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.